Chapter 29 Threat. Eric had never considered himself a small dog person. He preferred dogs that went ruff ruff, not yip yip. Eric liked dogs that he could wrestle, not trip over. But he had to admit, little Annie, the purebred brown and white King James Spaniel, was pretty darn cute. Mrs. Rosen hovered around the dog like a worried helicopter, fretting and fussing. She showed Eric a 2-page list of typed instructions, complete with emergency phone numbers. Eric promised that he'd do a good job, stuffed the spare keys in his pocket, and left. He didn't get far before a familiar voice called after him, "Eric!" It was Griffin Conley, gliding toward him on a skateboard. "Hey, buddy! I was wondering when you'd show." "How do you know I'd be here?" "That would be giving away my secrets, wouldn't it?" Griffin answered evasively. Eric resisted the urge, compelling as it was, to punch Griffin in the face. Partly because he knew it couldn't possibly end well, and there wouldn't be much pleasure in having his butt handed to him by Griffin Conley. Perhaps he also heard the echo of Mr. Floyd's comments in the counselor's office that day. Violence wasn't the answer. Instead, Eric asked, "Did you steal my bike?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Griffin answered. He looked Eric in the eye when he said it, never batted an eyelash. If he was lying, and Eric felt certain that he was, then Griffin did it with untroubled ease. Deep down, Griffin didn't seem to care what Eric thought or felt. It was something he lacked, a hole in his core, some basic absence of human sympathy. Griffin didn't feel much of anything. He was cold and hard, a brick. It was the quality, Eric realized, that made Griffin so scary. Far worse than being mean or angry. His heart was flawed, wounded in some horrible way. "I had my locker searched today," Eric told him. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Griffin taunted. "Is that your scary face, Eric? Am I supposed to get all nervous? You want to hit me, don't you? Go ahead. You can pretend I'm your dad. I'll give you one free shot." "I don't hate my father," Eric said. "Sure you don't," Griffin answered. "I don't," Eric snapped. "You're too stupid to understand." Eric loosened his shoulders, unclenched his hands, tried to shake the tension out of his body. He started walking. In 2 blocks, he'd be home. "I don't want to talk to you." "Oh, I think you're wrong about that, Eric." Griffin glided across Eric's path. He stepped off, casually kicked the back end of the board, and it popped into his hand. A cool trick. "So," Griffin said, "I want to make you an offer." "Not interested," Eric said. Griffin smirked, like a card player holding a full house. He absently massaged his chest with his right hand. "How'd that locker thing go, anyway? They find anything?" Eric ignored him and kept walking. "I didn't think so," Griffin continued, "or else you'd be way screwed. I hear you can get thrown out of school if they catch you with drugs or a weapon. It would be a real shame, Eric. I'd hate to lose you." "What did you do?" Eric said. "Get David to make the report for you?" "Hallenbach is a puppy," Griffin responded. "He'd jump off a bridge for me." "He'll figure it out someday," Eric replied. "One of these days, you're not going to have any friends left." Griffin snorted in a show of indifference, but Eric's words seemed to push him off balance. He responded by going on the attack. "You better be careful what you put into your locker, Eric. Next time, it could be a lot worse," Griffin said. "Do these numbers mean anything to you, good buddy? 30, 12, 26? It was Eric's locker combination. A number that nobody but Eric was supposed to know. "How did you—" "I've got friends, unlike you," Griffin spat. Eric thought of that day, when Hallenbach met him at his locker. How Eric was in a hurry. He carelessly opened and shut his locker with David at his side. Could Hallenbach have gotten the combination that way, and then passed it along to Griffin? "It would be easy for me to plant something in your locker. You know that, right?" "What is wrong with you?" Eric asked, his voice rising in frustration. "Why can't you just leave people alone? Is your life so miserable that this is how you have to spend your time? You're a waste. You know that? A total waste." Griffin grinned through the insults. "Oh, Eric, you are hurting my feelings. The deal is, I want you to do one thing for me, one little thing, and then I promise it will stop. I'll never bother you again." Of course, Eric didn't believe him, but Griffin had piqued his interest. "What do you want?" "A souvenir." "What?" "From Rosen's house," Griffin said. "I've been in there. Her husband has this big coin collection. They'll never miss it if you take a couple old silver dollars." "What are you talking about?" "You have the keys. It'll be easy," Griffin urged, selling it with a smile. "When you're in there, look around and take something for me. Nothing wrong with that. Consider it a payment." "What's wrong? You don't have the guts?" "Are you out of your... There's no way I'm stealing for you." That was the wrong answer, Eric. But then again, you've always disappointed me. Ever since that day on the basketball court. Remember that foul shot? Airball. You choked. Your father doesn't want you, and who could blame him? You're just a loser. He stepped closer to Eric, skateboard in his hands. Griffin raised the board as if to club Eric with it, and Eric flinched, took a step back. Griffin laughed. "Dude, why so jumpy?" It was as if Griffin were playing him like a yo-yo, up and down, back and forth. Eric was tired of the game. "Get away from me," he said, pushing Griffin aside. "You're a smart guy, Eric," Griffin called after him. "Figure it out. That house is loaded with stuff. Rosen's got way more than she deserves. You'll be like Robin Hood, Eric, stealing from the rich, giving to Griffin Conley. You come through for me, I'll never hassle you again." Eric picked up his pace. He wanted to clamp his hands over his ears and run, just run away, but he couldn't give Griffin that satisfaction. "You're a smart guy," Griffin repeated. 30, 12, 26. "Do you really want to go down that way?" Eric kept walking, trying hard not to listen. He could get a new locker tomorrow. Yet Eric knew that Griffin would always be able to find a way to open it. Even after Eric shut the front door, Griffin's laughter still echoed in his ears. It had to stop. Eric was a smart guy, Griffin said to himself. One way or the other, he'd figure it out.